Welcome to our courtesy boat inspector. This is the coordinator training, so anybody is welcome. It is designed to inform coordinators for local CBI programs. So you're going to take the information that I give you and bring it back to your inspectors. So if there's any people in the crowd that are inspectors, this is perfectly fine for you. But a lot of this is kind of to help people run their own programs. And this will be available, all of the slideshows, all the resources that I talk about are going to be available to you as you get your program started this summer. So here I am. First and foremost, and again, we've got some new folks on board, so I will go through this. This is something, why are they a threat? I think majority of people in this room already know, but this is something that it's important for inspectors to know. They don't have to have a huge, solid background. I know a lot of the people doing this, the inspectors, are fairly young, but having just kind of some basic knowledge, if a boater asks them questions, then it's good to have. So why we care: invasive aquatic species. So we always used to talk about plants, but now we're going to talk about all the species. Have multiple reproductive strategies, no natural enemies. So this is part of it, is our native herbivores don't eat invasive plants, and they often they grow more aggressively than our natives, like curly leaf pondweed. Right now, plant control has started for curly leaf pondweed because it comes up so early. Blanket lake surface, impeding recreational uses, lower property values. So some people, there's a variety of personalities in what people are going to care about, right? So some people are just concerned for the ecology of the lake, to care about the ecology of the lake, but some people will respond more to property values and how it affects their wallets. And then other people, recreational, both boats and swimming, fishing, all can be impeded by invasive species. And then they're very hard to eradicate. In Maine, we do have several groups. Some people are in this room that do plant control. So we have a separate grant program for those folks doing control work. And for some, we, LEA included, have kind of just accepted that there are some infestations that it's just going to be maintenance, that it's virtually impossible to absolutely eradicate plants. We do it every once in a while on some of our lakes that have smaller infestations, but prevention is always cheaper, right? And then everybody either has gotten or will get at least a handful of CBI handbooks. So in this presentation, it also tells you where in the handbook you can find this information. And that is, there's going to be a print quality PDF of that on our website as well. And I think that's up there now. So I'll show you how to get to that page in a little while. And then here's our poster, our 11 most unwanted plants. This is the list of plants deemed by the Department of Environmental Protection and in the Maine milfoil law as being illegal to transport, sell, propagate, own, other things around the state. So this is by far not a comprehensive list of potential invasive plants, but this is in the law. These are the things named in the law. So these are the most common ones and the ones that are closest and most likely to become a problem. So the Maine milfoil law, we've got the fines. This is in the handbook as well. I will say that very rarely, if ever, has anybody gotten a fine. Nobody's gotten a $5,000 fine, I'll tell you that much, for transporting an aquatic plant. The most I've heard of is a $100 ticket for transporting an invasive plant around the state of Maine. So the threat is there, and people do respond to laws And then we've got our river and lake, or lake and river protection stickers that the main one comes along with your registration, and the square is the out-of-state sticker. And I'll talk a little bit about stickers, but these are the funding mechanism for the grant programs for the state. So the sale of these goes into a fund, and that is where we get that money. So 80% goes to the DEP. So that's the grant program. Really, a lot of that money goes straight into the grants. And then 20% to inland fisheries and wildlife, which is primarily enforcement. So that goes to the game wardens. IF&W has been helping us more with some of the education and outreach this year. So that is where those funds are coming from. So what makes a good inspection? Be courteous. It seems obvious, but we have had inspectors in the past that are pretty aggressive, and it is a courtesy program. Inspections are not mandatory in the state of Maine. So as much as we would like every single person to stop and have to stop, we cannot force that. So I will say a majority of people do. Those of you that have done inspections before, a majority of boaters stop. They're either tolerant of you and say, whatever, fine. Some of them will thank you for being there. Some of them will help you do the inspection. But we always need to be courteous, be informative, but not overwhelming. So if somebody has a question, then absolutely we answer the questions that we can to the best of our ability. But if somebody is kind of clearly wanting to get out of there and get on the water or head out, we don't want to overload people. We don't want to keep them, hold them up, because next time they might say, you know what, I don't want to deal with the CBIs again. They're just talking my ear off, and they can say, no, I don't want to be inspected. And we want to avoid that. So, and I think a lot of people get those kind of social cues, but again, some of the younger folks might need guidance on this, of how, maybe how to read those cues for, make sure that people don't get sick of us, basically. And then do a thorough inspection. Inspectors will need to crouch down in order to see the entire underside of the boat. Just the prop is not enough. So everything that goes in the water needs to be inspected. And the prop is the propeller is totally important. The plants can get wound up in the propeller, but every other part is also important. The trailers, the bunks on the trailers. And we've got a training video that I'm not gonna play it tonight, but I'm gonna share it with you all, that has some of the parts of the boat. Ask if you can look inside the boat. I always ask, did they drop their anchor? Because if they drop their anchor, we know that it went to the bottom, potentially in shallow water. So again, anything that goes in the water might not be something that people necessarily think about. We definitely do not climb up into somebody's boat, particularly without asking. But if they've got a big, tall boat, if it's not something you can just kind of reach in, we ask them to do it. Like, hey, can you check the anchor? Or can you check your fishing gear? So, and make it clear, at least to my inspectors, I make it clear, we're not touching on somebody's boat. We ask before we do anything. I did witness one time a CBI, not one that works for LEA, get into somebody's truck and back up their trailer for them. And I nearly had a heart attack. It is not, people need to stay in their lane, right? And then, is the drain plug pulled? This is something we're trying to get a bill passed that would require boaters to drain their boats between lakes. It has not been passed yet. It has not been killed yet. There's a meeting about it in a couple of weeks, so we're hopeful that it will still get passed. But so we're asking people to drain their boats between lakes. That does not mean they pull up to the ramp, they're sitting on the ramp, and you have them pull out their plug and it drains right into the lake, right? So if there's a flat spot where they can do that safely, ask them to pull up. If there's not a place where it's not just going to run right down into the lake, then we say, well, could you pull your plug, when you stop to get gas? Or the drain plug law that we're trying to get passed would require people to leave their drain plugs out between lakes, like not just drain it for a little while and then put it back in. It would just be, you'd have to have it out between lakes. So if you've got a stickerless motorized boat, you can tell the boater about the penalty. And I will say it's up to a $500 fine for not having that sticker. And that is a ticket that's given out pretty freely by the game wardens. It's just an easy ticket to give, right? So they'll give that ticket out pretty regularly. And so we can tell boaters about the penalty. If there's time, if they're curious, we can tell them what the money pays for, because a lot of people are like, wow, why am I paying for this? So we can tell them why, and then where to get them. And did I put it on here? Yeah, they can be bought online. And in the handbook, I've put a QR code that you can just scan with your phone. It takes you directly to the IF&W website where you can buy that sticker. And that sticker is for out-of-staters. So people that register their boats in Maine, them not having current year sticker is bigger than just the lake and river protection sticker. It means that they haven't registered it this year, and that's a whole different thing. But if somebody comes up from out of state or even in state and you tell them about the sticker, an in-state person can buy that $45 lake and river protection sticker online if they're worried about getting caught by a warden or they want to support the program. And the wardens have told me that if somebody has the receipt for buying that online, that counts. They're not going to get a ticket if they can prove that they purchased one. Because obviously if they buy it online and then they launch onto the lake, they're not going to have the sticker on their boat. It takes like 10 days to get it in the mail. So if the boater refuses an inspection, you can politely ask them to do it. Like, hey, can you just take a look around yourself? We do have some brochures that we can hand out to boaters. We don't just give one to every boater, because then they're going to end up in the lake, right? So if somebody's really adamant that they don't want to do an inspection and get out of my face and all of that, then we step back from that. We're not going to engage in that. But again, those of you that have done it before, it's very rare. I very rarely run into somebody that that refuses inspection, and they're just having a bad day. Honestly, I haven't met many people that are opposed to the CBI program in general. And there's a thing about that in the handbook, and everybody can probably guess when I took this picture in 2020. That was an interesting year. Speaking of interesting years, so this is from the handbook. This is just the totals over time since we started the boat inspection program. Obviously, in 2001, it was very little. 2004-05 was when the milfoil law, the grant program started. So every year, like we've gone up, we've kind of plateaued a little bit. My expectation is we're actually going to go up again this year, because we do have several new groups coming on board. So I think we're going to have more inspections this year. And then the outlier, of course, is 2020, where we had over 100,000 because everybody was on the lake. And courtesy boat inspector was one of the only seasonal jobs that was not shut down. So we had a lot of people on the water and a lot of staff availability. So yeah. So historically, a while ago, this was our sticker, and those of you that have been with us for a while, this was the winch sticker that we gave out to boaters to put on their trailer, remove all plants, and that's the state law. But we have now adjusted to clean, drain, dry, and this is the clean, drain, dry sticker from last year. We do have a new one that people are going to see in their supplies orders. So we changed the messaging because of all of these little things. These invasive organisms, not just plants, right? So we've got invasive animals that are very small and can survive for long periods of time in standing water. And this is why we're asking people to drain their boats. There is a bit about that in the handbook. So just a little bit about some of the issues, some of the problems. Asian clams, these ones aren't like the most invasive of the mollusks, but they are in New Hampshire, so they're fairly close. And in 2018, New Hampshire passed their own drain plug law, and it was partially in reaction to finding Asian clams in their lakes. So that's how their drain plug law kind of came about, was to try and prevent the spread of these within their state. So this is the location. Zebra mussels, this is a big conversation that we're having right now because they did find them last year just over the border in Canada, just above Fort Kent there. It's about 20 miles north of our border. It was found in the St. John River watershed, so in a lake just above the St. John River. So zebra mussels are very invasive. These are called veligers. These are the baby zebra mussels, and they are microscopic, and these ones can survive in standing water. Our Canadian counterparts came and did a presentation at the summit, and that's one of the things I'm going to share with you all. They did a rather jaw-dropping presentation about their experiences with the zebra mussels they have found and the research that they have done, and they can survive for I think it was up to 20 days maybe in standing water. And then if they're growing on the outside of a boat, they can survive for, I don't know if Chris, you remember, I think it was 13 days. And that's dry. So if it rains, it kind of starts the clock over again. So, and these can be found in standing water. So this is where that drain plug law comes in and is so critical. And here's the locations, and then we've got this little dot just at the top of Maine. So they're close. This was also in 2018. This was a big kind of scare. This is Pennsawassie Lake in Norway, and it was an early season inspection, and the inspector found this big piece of Eurasian milfoil on the somebody told me it was on fishing line or fishing gear or something. And anyway, so they found this Eurasian milfoil, took it off, sent it to the DEP for identification, and Karen Hannell actually found this this zebra mussel growing on the Eurasian milfoil. So that was kind of a wake-up call. They had come from the Connecticut River, and it was just, or the St. Lawrence River, I should say, and it was just kind of a wake-up call. And we said, oh, there's this other thing. We've been so focused on plants, and isn't that enough? Isn't that enough that we have to deal with these plants? But this was kind of a wake-up call. Like, no, we need to be paying attention to all of it. So these are the parts to the clean, drain, dry message. And the clean is already state law in Maine, right? We have to clean off plants, any kind of visual stuff off of the boat and trailer. And then the drain is what we're trying to pass in the state legislature right now. And then dry is hard, right? You got to just leave it for days and days between lakes, or using a sponge or a towel to dry off. So there's not very many places that have, a lot of places have the clean and the drain, a lot of states, I should say, but I don't think there's anybody that has dry as their a law. But this is a slide about additional measures. So these are things that we do not have in Maine, and we desperately do not want to have in Maine. These are found in these boat wash stations. Decontamination stations are found in places that already have these invasive animals. And so we don't want to get to this point. And this is one of the reasons why we're asking people to drain their boats. It's a pretty small but easy gesture that can be done that can really have a big impact. Oh, and there's decontaminated. So some of the decontamination stations, it's actually chemical washes in order to kill like the zebra mussels. There's special chemicals that can kill them. And we do not want that here. So here's just a diagram of all the places. You know, you don't have to know the names of all the parts of the boat. Just know that anything that goes in the water is a problem. We had a couple of years ago, fanwort was found on the spare tire, which was right at the top of the trailer on a bass boat, and it was wrapped up in the spare tire. So at some point when they were in Rhode Island, they had backed way in and picked up this invasive plant on their trailer. And then fishing, I need to get a picture of a trolling motor for this. So with fishing, same thing, anything that goes in the water. These power poles, downriggers, these power poles, they kind of stress me out. Somebody asked about it at the summit. And it's these poles that come off of the bass boats and they're telescoping and they just sink down into the muck at the bottom of the lake and to hold the boat totally still. And then they take them up and buzz away, go to another place, put them down. And it certainly is a concern, right? It's a concern. And a lot of bass fishermen, they care a lot about their boat and equipment. So when they leave the lake, most of them, I would say, will clean their stuff. But if they boat out of state, fish out of state, it's definitely that, and people, you get a little bit frustrated sometimes, I think, but everything we do is we're doing the best that we can, right? Nothing is going to be totally perfect. And I would say a lot of the bass fishermen, they can be a little standoffish, but a lot of them do care about this issue, and they care about their boats and keeping them clean. And then non-motorized people are like, oh, we inspect canoes. We do. It is far less likely that these would be, that plants would be found on these vessels. We did have a very interesting inspection one year where milfoil was actually found stuck to the side of a canoe, I believe, and they had been in Lake Arrowhead. So where there's just tons of milfoil in there and the fragments were everywhere. So it certainly is, we check anything that goes in the water. Also the standing water issue, obviously canoes and kayaks can have standing water that can be difficult to get out. So we work on that as well as we can. And then I think before I move on to some of the resources, I see that there's a little chat bubble. So if people have questions about anything that's come up so far, let's just maybe take a second. If you want to put something in the chat, we can look at that. So this one is from Kathy. Are most boat storage companies make sure that boats meet clean, drain, dry practices? It is somewhat doubtful that marinas primarily are taking this into account. I will say if something's stored over the winter, that nothing's really going to survive through the winter. So it's not something that is necessarily on purpose, but just by the very nature of keeping a boat out of water for so long, it will not, the invasives won't be a problem there. There is actually the harbor master for the town of Naples is on here. The town of Naples, to my knowledge, is the only town in Maine that right now requires inspections by marinas of boats going into their lakes. How much is made from the sale of the stickers? I don't have that information right at my fingertips, but I can get it. And that was information we used to put in the handbook. But
Mary?
yes, Chris, do you know that?
Yeah, I can answer that.
Yeah.
Actually, John just talked about it in a meeting earlier today. It looks like, I believe it was last year, we got roughly 1.8 million. And then we got for DEP 1.4, and the remainder went to Fish and Wildlife due to the 80-20 split. And that pays for the positions in DEP for the program, but also all of the grants for CBI, the direct and competitive, and also the removal and mitigation efforts. So that drives the entire program.
So next one, oh, can we get a copy of the slides? Absolutely. The slides will be available. I usually do it as a PowerPoint, and I save them as PDFs just in case somebody can't use PowerPoint. And then we've got, I'm gonna expand this. Any concerns about snakeheads at this point? Not from in my situation. That would be a question for Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. So they do the invasive fish stuff. I mean, we certainly keep an eye out as inspectors. We can keep an eye out for invasive fish and that kind of behavior, but that's really the purview of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife.
Can I say one more thing about that real quick, Mary?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay, so there was actually a presenter at a conference down at Hyannis, and he had mentioned that there were snakehead individual fish found in ponds in Massachusetts. And I used to work with those things down in Maryland. They are tough as nails. And just because we haven't seen them this far doesn't mean they couldn't. So still something to always keep an eye out, you know. They are hellaciously tough fish. But as of right now, I think Massachusetts, the southern half of Massachusetts is as far as they've gotten.
And I have somebody, Michael sent me a direct message. I'm not sure if that was intentional. He says they are on a border lake and many New Hampshire boats pass across the state line and enter the Maine side of the ponds. If they are registered in Maine, are they required to have a Maine sticker? Yes, they are. So if it's registered in Maine, the lake and river protection sticker actually comes with your registration. So when I showed you that sticker, the big green part is the registration, and there's a little white strip on the side, a little rectangle. That's the lake and river protection sticker. So it comes with their registration. The folks that have to buy it separately, the square one, those are the out-of-state boats. As an interesting story, I did one time inspect a boat that didn't have the lake and river protection sticker part. They had cut it off. So if you only boat on the ocean, they will cut it off and give you $15 off of your state registration. But he was boating on Sebago Lake inland, and he's like, no, I only boat on the ocean, so I don't need to get the sticker. And I had to remind him that Sebago Lake is in fact freshwater. So, and he ended up buying the out-of-state sticker. He ended up purchasing it. Sebago Lake has a ton of game wardens around. So he was like, I'll just buy it. Nancy, given the proximity of invasive animals in addition to plants, how close is the state of Maine to advocating for boat wash stations near clean lakes? We do, some lakes already have boat wash stations. This question comes up a lot, and I'm not going to be able to answer it very well. I think cost is a big factor with this because the majority of lakes in Maine are clean, or that we know of, do not have any invasive plants, and that we know of, none of those invasive animals that we've been talking about with Clean Drain Dry are here in Maine. So up until right now, we don't have to worry about zebra mussels being spread within Maine borders or any of those invasive animals. That's not to say it might not come up, but as of now, I would consider all of our lakes clean as far as a boat washing is concerned, because plants you can take them off. So the boat wash stations mostly that we have in Maine, though, are just a cold hose in the parking lot. So I do ask people sometimes if they could go to a car wash, but that's a huge undertaking, to do boat wash stations. So no easy answer. Do ocean green crabs survive in fresh water? I don't believe so. I've never seen them. I'm not sure about brackish water, but in our lakes that we do inspections on, that has not been something that has been a problem. Average inspection time for an experienced inspector, maybe a couple minutes, depending on how much conversation you have with the boater. I don't know if anybody else in the chat wants to weigh in on that have been doing it, but it's really not, it's not very long. As long as that's what you're doing, it's just a couple of minutes. Oh, so Michael again direct messaged me. I meant to ask if they are registered in New Hampshire, do they need the Maine sticker? Yes. So any boat that's out of state has to buy that square sticker, which is $45. If you're boating in Maine, you have to have that lake and river protection sticker. So you can buy it online. They can buy it in some of the bait shops have them, town offices have them. So that is a requirement for the state of Maine. I do not have any updates on Chinese mystery snails. This was a question that came up at the summit as well. And Lake Stewards of Maine has been collecting location data, but there isn't a lot of research out there on actual impact of Chinese mystery snails on our water bodies. So I'm going to continue on, sally forth here, as long as people are good up until now. We'll have more time at the end. This is not your only opportunity to ask questions. So we'll have some more time at the end. All right, moving on. This is just a screenshot. I do have on the LEA website a drop down. Somebody emailed me earlier that they were having a hard time finding this page, or it wasn't quite right. This is mainlakes.org. Under the invasives drop down, the first thing on the tab is courtesy boat inspectors. So if you go to that, it's got the boat inspection video, and this is very old video. I wouldn't say it's totally out of date. It's definitely still useful, but it doesn't have that focus on the draining, on the clean drain dry. So we're going to be updating the video hopefully this summer, so that for next year we have some better training videos. But this page, it's got the copy of the handbook, it's got the inspection form, it's going to have all these slides and videos, it's going to have a recording of this presentation on there, and I'm going to be updating that for next week. So that will be available. And then this is just kind of a fun thing to say, share with people. I put this together I did a history of the CBI program presentation, and I put this together. We've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of saves over the years, and we consider a save anytime an invasive plant is taken off of a boat, whether it's leaving an infested lake already in Maine or coming in from out of state or from another lake in Maine. So these are just kind of notable saves since the beginning of the program, some of the saves that we've had. And I have had people, boaters, and sometimes inspectors. I've been interviewing inspectors for working for me and asking them about the job, and they said, oh, it's about removing milfoil from boats. And I think it's really important to remind people that it's not just milfoil, that we do have 7 invasive aquatic plants in Maine, documented right now, and they're not all milfoil. So it's important for people to understand that they can look like all kinds of different things. And then I mentioned the fanwort earlier, kind of an interesting plant. One of the great things about being a CBI is you don't need to know what any of these things look like. All you have to do is remove them from the boat. And I'll talk about how to get these identified in a minute here. So here's our new map. It's very nice. Becky Schaffner from the DEP has updated this for us. And as you can see, it seems like a lot. There's a lot of symbols. It's kind of alarming looking, but realistically, we have, I think, about 6,000 lakes and rivers and ponds in the state of Maine. So we're in pretty good shape as far as infestations at this point. And it can be disheartening when we add something, but we also have taken lakes off of this list too. So it's certainly, we're in really good shape compared to some of the other states. So the yellow squares, that's the variable leaf milfoil, certainly the most common and widespread of the invasive plants in Maine, but we do have these other ones. And I pick on Lake Arrowhead, and the Lake Arrowhead folks were at the summit, and it's not their fault, but Lake Arrowhead does have 2 documented invasive plants in it, variable leaf milfoil, which is super widespread in Arrowhead, and then brittle naiad, which the extent is not totally known yet, but brittle naiad is treated with herbicides, is the primary treatment, because it is really hard to manage. So one of the things that I say to people is not all infestations are created equal. So there's a couple spots in the state, Lake Arrowhead, Cobbossee Lake. Cobbossee has 3 documented invasive plants, and they're around the boat launches, right? And Lake Arrowhead is just lousy. It's super shallow, so it can pick up, and the weeds just grow throughout the whole lake. So that's why I say that, because some of these things, some of the other lakes, yes, they have plants in them, but it might be on the opposite side, or it might be like just a tiny little patch, or it might be, well, we haven't seen them in a year, but you have to be plant free for 3 years in order to get off the list. So I always point out these spots. If somebody's coming from Lake Arrowhead, fine-tooth comb. And if somebody's coming from out of state, same thing. We treat out of state boats as if they are toxic, because so many lakes out of state are infested. A lot of these other New England states, they just weren't on top of it like we are. They didn't get any of these preventative measures in place. They've just been reacting to issues after the fact. So we've done a lot of prevention. And data collection app. This is really, it's a nice development. Within the program, we used to do it all on paper, but now we have an app. It eliminates incomplete inspections. And I will say some people are still going to use the paper forms and then hand them into the coordinator to enter into the app, which is totally acceptable. But we need to make sure that those paper forms that they're filling out are complete. And it's in the app, it won't let you submit. It won't let you continue if you're missing information. So if somebody's going to do the paper forms, we just need to make sure that they're completing them. Oh, handwriting. Let's not talk about the handwriting issue from back in the day. Data is almost immediately available. So once your inspectors submit their information, it's available on a dashboard online, which I will share the link with all of you for that. And this is just kind of screenshots of what that app looks like. The training, I think I put it up here, is Thursday, May 10th. I did mention that in the email reminder that I sent to you all yesterday. I think that was yesterday, and I did have quite a few people sign up. That is totally appropriate for inspectors to attend as well. And before that training next week, I will be sending you the instructions for how to put the app on your phone, how to get that started. And then Becky Schaffner next week will do her app training, but I'm going to send out some information before that so you can kind of play around with it and get comfortable. And then she'll answer any questions that people have and go through how to set that up. And this is a screenshot of last year's inspection dashboard. So I obviously took this early in the season last year when only basically the city of Ellsworth was the only people doing the inspection so far. But this is where those will show up, and you'll be able to see what other people are doing and see your own information as well. So here's just an example of the paper form. This is going to be available. It's in the handbook still, and it either is or will be available on that resources page that I showed you earlier. And I still use the paper form because I don't like just having my phone in my hand all the time. So just at the top, this top information is the shift information, number of trailers in the parking lot. We always encourage people to inspect trailers when they come onto their shift, especially if they're doing an afternoon shift, or if they're getting on at 8 o'clock, maybe there's trailers in the parking lot. That one person that got that $100 ticket, they had Eurasian milfoil on the trailer of their boat, and the inspector found it when they got on to work. So it was not found during an inspection. It was found on the trailer in the parking lot. So it's certainly a possibility. And then encouraging the boater to do their own inspection. So this is year 22-3 of doing this program. We always ask the boater, if I'm not here when you come out, if there's nobody there at the next lake, will you do your own inspection? They always say yes. Whether or not they're actually doing it is a totally different question, but we always ask that. And we want to keep encouraging people to do their own inspections because it's, that would be great. So if it's motorized, we take down the state abbreviation and then the entire bow number on the side of the boat. Current year sticker, yes, no, and then NM is non-motorized. So if it's a canoe or kayak, you just circle NM. If they circle no, there's no sticker, that's the opportunity for the inspector to say, hey, there's this sticker. This is how the program is funded. I've got this QR code that you can scan to buy that sticker if you want to do that. And then we are not enforcement. So this is one of those be courteous things. We're just giving them a heads up. We're not going to be aggressive about it. And then previous water body. As you can see in this second inspection, this boater was leaving Hancock Pond and they're doing the inspection on Hancock Pond. This isn't always the case. So if somebody is leaving, say somebody's leaving Hancock Pond, and you are going to ask them, where were you before Hancock Pond? This non-motorized boat, they always go on Hancock Pond. But we want to ask them where they were before this lake that they're coming out of. Because if you find something suspicious on their boat, in their boat, on their trailer, Hancock Pond does not have any documented invasive species. So if something comes out and they say, oh, well, I came up, my last lake was in Rhode Island or Massachusetts, you can say, okay, so that's a clue. We want to have a record of their movements. And maybe there's invasive species in Hancock Pond, and this is our first clue, but maybe not. And then if a plant is found, you have to say whether or not it was invasive. And this is where I have a suspicious plant. This is the protocol. The inspector decides if it's suspicious. You all, as the coordinator, need to determine your comfort level. I've got boat inspectors on my team that do have some experience with plants, so there are things I trust them to identify. If you do not have that confidence, I would say the inspector gives you a plant sample every time for every time they find a plant. So they would give you the plant sample. And then if you all as a coordinator can't identify it, you're going to send the photo to LEA. So this is a change for those of you that have done it in previous years. The Lake Stewards of Maine used to do this. You're going to be sending it to me now. And I've got a submission page on our website. And then you're going to keep the sample in the refrigerator. This is what the address for that suspicious plant form looks like. And there's this form is for both boat inspections, but also if somebody finds a suspicious plant floating around their dock, or if it's not part of an inspection. So it's going to be kind of a dual use on that. But this is what you're going to use. And this link is going to be on that same page with all of the other training materials. And this also, there's a QR code in the handbook that you can scan to do that. Here's just some pictures of boat inspectors throughout the years, just to get us uplifted, ready for the season. This is the handbook this year. This is also what the sticker looks like, the new winch sticker that will go on, that you can offer people to put on their trailers, is having the same graphic. So the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife came up with this, and we're really happy to have them on board and helping us with education. And then some people got the inspector on duty signs. Unfortunately, I can't mail those because they're just too big and awkward. But you don't have to have an inspector on duty sign in order to have a successful program. Most people do not. And here we are. So that is what I have. Historically, we would watch the training video during the during this coordinator training, but I don't feel it is necessary. And I will be sharing the link with you to that resources page, which is where that video is going to be. And yeah, so if people have questions, we'll certainly do the chat right now because we got time. If you don't have any questions, or you're not interested in hearing other people's questions, you feel free to sign off. If you have something that you think is really specific to you and your program, you can shoot me an email, or Chris an email, and we will get back to you on that. And I think I might leave that up and open up the chat. No worries, Judy. So Wynn says the website has the 2022 handbook. So interesting. I did update that the other day, so I'll have to take a look at that. It should be 2023, but I will check that. Is there a current paper form available? So yes. I'm not sure. Again, I've updated some things on that resources page, but not everything. But I will be putting the PDF of the paper form on to that resources page. May 10th is a Wednesday. Did I say Thursday, May 10th? You are correct. Somebody just, thank you, Darrell. May 10th is a Wednesday. So just ignore that Thursday thing. Today is Thursday. That's why I got confused. Okay. Yes, it's on 5/10. It's definitely on a Wednesday. Chris, it's on a Wednesday, right? Yes.
Oh, you're honest, I got confused there too, because I remember 5:10 and I've been thinking it was Thursday, so I apologize.
Yeah. 5:10 is a Wednesday. And it is via Zoom. So that's why we really encourage as many people as possible to come, including inspectors. If something that we think may be invasive, should we grab a sample and or take a picture? So on the boat, you would obviously remove a plant from the boat or the trailer where you find it. If you find something in the water on your lake, at this point, I'm willing to be like, yeah, just send us a picture. But that if it gets too overwhelming, I might have to just like keep it to the boat inspection program. But keep the sample in a bag with water and take a picture. You're going to submit the picture via the suspicious plant form. You're going to hold on to that plant, because if I look at the picture and I either can't tell what it is, or I look at it and I say, ooh, I really need to see that closer. It looks suspicious to me. Then we will need to actually have you mail the sample or bring it to our office. So it's important to hold on to that sample until you hear from us. And I'm going to do my damnedest to have that be a 2-week turnaround, hopefully sooner than that. So you submit a plant. I'm going to say 2 weeks. Hopefully it'll be shorter than that to hear back from us. Bill says website does have the 2023 handbook. So there we go. Ooh, somebody direct message to me is volunteering to help with the new training videos. So I will take you up on that. Can survey 123 update automatically if I just click to the old survey? That, I don't know if Chris knows the answer to that. I do have the, I believe if you have the Survey 123 app on your phone or device already, you will have to have the new QR code or to get the 2023 survey. But Chris, you might need to correct me on that. I got a new phone, so I don't have Survey 123 on my phone right now. I do have the QR code to get this year's survey if needed. And I will also put that on the resources page. I just sent it to somebody else as an image. So, yep.
So, Mary,
Yes.
I'll be honest, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I want to say that I don't know if it does it year to year, but I do know that when Becky does updates, when you log back in, certain things will update. But I don't know the answer to that one, to be perfectly honest. I do know that it is extremely important, if possible, for people to do the Zoom training for the app, because there haven't been major changes, but there are a few minor tweaks that Becky has made, and it would be good for people to know about. For example, things might be a little different if there's a shift with no inspections. Another thing that Becky has added, or at least is trying to make sure is off the ground here soon, is a way for people to enter their own inspectors. And then it goes through the back end of things and gets spat out into our database. So those are some new things. They don't change the whole methodology. It's all very similar, but would be good for people to hear.
Thanks.
Yep.
So Emily was just talking about the DNA testing, and I am not familiar with what happened on Alamoosic for their the first test of the suspicious plant was positive, but later tested negative. So I do not know what would cause that. What would cause that kind of variability with the samples, because I dropped them off to our tester for milfoil, at least at St. Joseph's College down here, but as far as I know, he's usually pretty accurate, so I'm not sure. Can we pick up our CBI handbooks from your office in Bridgeton? When is the best time? So I will, Judy, will communicate on that. I do have a few bags for people that weren't at the summit. And hopefully people can get to Bridgeton to pick those up, but we'll communicate about that directly. I will be in the office tomorrow for most of the day and I can leave that out, but we can also set something up for next week. Maria says, I'm just in the app now to check. I had an update for Lake Smart, but no update came up for CBI. So it looks like we probably will need to download the new survey into the app. So again, I have the QR code for that and I have the link for it that you can click on. So, but I agree with Chris that people should try and attend the app training if you can. Will we get a cert via email from this class? So Wayne, I can send you that. The CBI coordinator training generally does not, it's, you know, boat inspectors don't have to be certified. So for those of you that don't know, there are groups, bass clubs and other groups doing boating events and fishing events in the state of Maine as part of their permit. One new requirement is that they have to do a boat inspection training. I have some specialized for those events, but we have been inviting them to come to these coordinator trainings as well. And that counts as their, for this certification. It's a 5-year certification. So Wayne, I can send you that directly. For just the CBI coordinators and boat inspectors in general, we do not do a certification for the CBI program. So that's where that question is coming from, if anybody's curious. Any other questions? Trying to think if there was anything. Oh, something I did do at the summit was I held up, and I don't think I have one here in my apartment, but the plant sample bags this year are printed on the wrong side. So there's a side that that you can write on with a ballpoint pen that usually has like the categories, the spots for what you need to write down. And this year it's backwards. So it shouldn't be that big a deal, but it's just a little bit annoying. They are going to give them to us for free, but I do not have the reprints yet.